Rasheeda walked away the moment she saw me with her head down. Let's be honest, she can't even face me. That woman will jump in the casket with him.
In order to move forward. Nobody is perfect and relationships have issues. But y'all also got to understand forgiveness too. And that's what I have learned to understand. Because we've had to forgive each other. I ain't always been perfect in my marriage. We've had dishonesty from both sides of us in this marriage. We've had infidelities from both sides of us in this marriage.
Do you realize you didn't even attend Cannon's last birthday because where were you at?
That's the same party that I helped pay for and pay for the gifts, correct?
When we was in mediation, do you even remember what we agreed on? Yeah, you don't know because you don't.
I do know, I'm not.
So the agreement was that you get Cannon the third weekend of every month. Do you do that?
No, we didn't really agree to that because the last time...
It's signed on paper.
This is what I just want to say. It's not gonna ever be exactly what you want it to be. But
I get that now.
One thing you ain't gonna never, ever have to question or worry about is that boy getting the love and the same treatment as all the other kids when he's around.
I mean, I told you, you can call me anytime. When you need me, call me.
Now that you say that, I'm gonna take your word for it. We'll see.
So if I pick him up from your house and I come to your door, you're gonna be fully dressed or you're gonna be how you normally be?
How do I normally be?
You came to the door a few times in your birthday suit. You don't think that's happened?
Kidding me?
So that's never happened?
Oh, you making up now. I don't know what you trying to do, what you trying to pull, but it's okay. Cause listen, I don't erase no message.
And I'm not saying it like I've never...
Jasmine stood in the dimly lit living room of Kirk Frost's spacious Atlanta home, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her eyes burned with a mix of determination and desperation, her entire body radiating tension. She had always been a strong presence, a woman who never backed down from conflict, and tonight was no different. The air between them was thick, suffocating, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Outside, the city hummed with life, but in that room, it was as if the world had come to a halt. Kirk sat on the edge of the leather couch, his posture tense. His hands were clasped together between his knees, fingers interlocked like he was trying to hold himself together. He had been through plenty of drama before, but this felt different. It felt final. The faint scent of Rasheeda's perfume lingered. In the room, a stark reminder of the life he had built with his wife. A life that now felt like it was slipping through his fingers. Framed pictures of their family lined the mantel, silent witnesses to the mess he had made. But Jasmine wasn't here to talk about the past. She wasn't here to mourn what had been. She was here to fight for what she believed was hers. Her. Heels clicked sharply against the hardwood floor as she paced back and forth, each step an exclamation point to the thoughts racing through her mind. She had been patient, too patient. For months, even years, she had waited in the shadows, playing the role of the other woman, the secret, the hidden truth behind closed doors. But that patience had run out. Whatever feelings she had once had for Kirk had twisted into something sharper, something more relentless. She stopped abruptly, turning to face him. Her voice sliced through the silence. "I'm done waiting, Kirk." Kirk lifted his gaze, exhaustion etched across his features. "Jasmine, this isn't the way to do this." She let out a hollow laugh, shaking her head. "The way to do this? You're really going to talk to me about the right way to handle things? After everything?" He exhaled heavily, rubbing his temples. He had expected this confrontation, had known it was inevitable, but that didn't make it any easier. "I'm not trying to fight with you, but you're trying to take my son away," she snapped, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. Kirk's jaw tightened. "I'm not taking him away from you, Jasmine. I'm making sure he has the best future possible. I'm making sure he's safe." Jasmine's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Safe? You think I can't take care of my own son?" "This isn't about you," Kirk said, his tone firm but not unkind. It's about him. Her eyes flashed with fury. No, this is about control. You want to control everything. You think you can just file some papers and take him from me like I don't matter? Kirk stood, his patience wearing thin. Jasmine, I've tried. I've tried to co-parent with you to make this work, but every time I turn around, you're using him as a weapon. I won't let him grow up in the middle of this mess. Jasmine's breath came fast and shallow, her mind spinning. She felt like the walls were closing in, like she was losing everything all at once. You don't get to make that decision for me, she whispered, but there was no softness in her voice, only raw pain. I already did, Kirk admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I filed for custody. The room went silent. Jasmine's body went rigid, her mind processing what he had just said. And then, like a dam breaking, the fury erupted. Before Kirk could react, she grabbed a vase from the table and hurled it against the wall. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the house, fragments scattering across the floor. But she wasn't finished. Her anger had been building for too long, simmering just beneath the surface, and now it was spilling out in a flood she couldn't control. She grabbed whatever she could reach, picture frames, decorative candles, anything that would break, and sent them crashing to the floor. "This is my family!" she screamed, her voice filled with rage and desperation. "You don't get to take that from me!" Kirk didn't flinch. He didn't move. He knew reacting with anger would only make things worse. Instead, he looked at her, not with fury, but with something else, something closer to sadness. "Jasmine, stop," he said, his voice steady. "This isn't helping." She turned on him, eyes blazing. "You think I care about helping? You think I'm just going to stand here while you rip my son away from me? "I'm not trying to rip him away from you," Kirk said carefully. "I just want what's best for him." Jasmine shook her head wildly. "You don't get to decide that, Kirk. He needs his mother. And you—" Her voice broke for the first time, the fight starting to drain from her. "You never loved me. You never cared." Kirk sighed, running a hand over his face. "Jasmine, we made mistakes. But this isn't about us anymore." For a moment, she looked like so.
Whatever the number is. So, what's the deal on the text messages? Is that what we got going on? Because the fact that I'm even sitting here, even listening to this, is beneath me. And I'm sick and tired of this. Straight up. What is up?
What's up is I take care of my child, not to.
Jasmine Washington stood firm in the middle of Kirk Frost's living room, her arms crossed over her chest. Her eyes burned with frustration and determination. She had been patient for too long, and tonight, she was putting an end to it. The time for waiting, hoping, and believing in false promises was over. "This ends now, Kirk," Jasmine said, her voice steady but sharp enough to make his shoulders tense. "I'm done being the other woman. I'm done being your backup plan. You need to make a choice, me or Rasheeda, and you're going to do it tonight." Kirk Frost's eyes flickered up to meet hers, his expression a mix of guilt, exhaustion, and maybe even fear. He had known this moment would come eventually, but that didn't make it any easier. As one of the central figures in love and hip-hop, Atlanta, his personal life was already under a microscope, and this confrontation could change everything. Jasmine had never been the type to sit quietly in the background. From the moment they met in that downtown club, there had been an undeniable spark between them. She had laughed loudly, her confidence lighting up the room, and when their eyes locked, it was as if she had already made up her mind about him. Back then, it had all been thrilling, exciting even. But now, it was a mess. A tangled web of lies, betrayal, and emotions that had spiraled out of control. Kirk exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. Jasmine, it's not that simple, he said, his voice rough as if he were trying to reason with a storm. Rasheeda and I, we have history. We built a business together. We have a kid. You can't just... I don't care, Jasmine snapped, stepping closer, her hands dropping to her hips. History doesn't mean loyalty, Kirk. Every time Rasheeda turns her back, you come running to me. Every time you need something she won't give you, you find me. Don't act like I'm the problem here. You made this mess. Now clean it up. The tension in the room grew thicker. The walls felt like they were closing in as the weight of her words pressed down on both of them. Kirk leaned back, staring at the ceiling, searching for some kind of escape from this moment. But there was no way out. He could still hear Rasheeda's voice from their last fight. She had accused him of keeping secrets, of being distant. She wasn't wrong. He had been reckless, allowing Jasmine to get deeper into his life than he ever intended. And now here she was, standing in his home, demanding that he tear everything apart for her. Jasmine had rehearsed this confrontation in her head 100 times. She had imagined every possible response from him. Anger, excuses, maybe even a confession of love. But his silence was worse. It felt like he was choosing already, and she refused to be the one left behind. "Look at me," she demanded, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You don't get to sit there and act like this isn't happening. I've given you everything. My time, my heart, my pride. And for what? To watch you play house with Rasheeda while I wait for whatever. Scraps you decide to throw my way? No more, Kirk. You're going to divorce her, and you're going to marry me. That's the deal." Kirk's jaw tightened. Finally, he met her gaze, his own eyes hardening. "You think it's that easy?" he asked. "You think I can just walk away from my entire life with Rasheeda because you're tired of waiting?" "Jasmine, you knew what this was from the start." Jasmine let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Don't you dare put this on me," she shot back. "I didn't plan on falling for you. I didn't expect you to keep coming back, making promises you never meant to keep. But you did, and now I'm calling you on it. You owe me this." The word owe hung between them, heavy and sharp. Kirk stood up, his height giving him a sense of control, but his shifting stance betrayed his unease. He paced toward the window, staring out at the city lights. He could feel Jasmine's eyes drilling into his back, waiting for his response. This wasn't a bluff. He knew her well enough to recognize when she was serious. "Rasheeda's not just some fling I can toss aside," Kirk said finally, his voice quieter, almost pleading. "She's my wife, my partner. We built something real." "Then what am I?" Jasmine challenged, stepping forward. "A mistake? A distraction? Because that's not what you said when you were in my bed, telling me how much you needed me. You don't get to rewrite the story now, Kirk. You made me believe there was a future here." Kirk turned to face her, his expression torn. She was right in some ways. He had let her believe there was more to this than there ever could be, but the truth was messy. Love for Rasheeda, desire for Jasmine, and a selfish part of him that had tried to have it all. "Jasmine, if I do this, if I leave Rasheeda, it's not just about us," he said, stepping closer. "It's lawyers. Money, my son. It's everything falling apart. Are you ready for that?" Jasmine didn't hesitate. "I'm ready." Kirk Frost's eyes lifted to meet Jasmine Washington's, emotions swirling in his gaze. Guilt, exhaustion, and maybe even a flicker of fear. As one of the main figures in love and hip-hop Atlanta, he had always known this moment would arrive. Hadn't he? Jasmine Washington was never one to stay silent forever. She had fire, passion, a magnetic energy that had drawn him in from the very start. The first time they met at that downtown club, her laughter had cut through the noise, her eyes locking onto his with a confidence that told him she had already made up her mind. Back then, it had been a thrill, a secret kept for the excitement, for the cameras. But now it was something else entirely. Now it was a reckoning. "Kirk, this ends now," Jasmine said, her voice steady, but laced with an intensity that made his shoulders tense. "I'm done being the side piece, the backup plan. You need to make a choice, me or Rasheeda, and you're making it tonight." Kirk's jaw tightened as he tried to gather his thoughts. He looked away, as if searching for an escape, but there was none. The weight of her words pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. "Jazz, you know it's not that simple," he said, his voice rough. "Rasheeda and we've got history, a business, a family, a son. You can't just—" "I don't care," Jasmine interrupted, stepping closer. Her hands landed on her hips, her expression sharp with frustration. "History doesn't equal loyalty. You run to me every time she turns her back, every time you need something from me that she won't give. Don't act like I'm the one making this complicated. You created this mess, Kirk. Now fix it." The room felt smaller, as if the walls were closing in. Kirk let out a slow breath, tilting his head back to stare at the ceiling. Maybe if he looked hard enough, he'd find an answer there. But all he saw was the reality of his choices crashing down around him. He could still picture Rasheeda's face from their last argument, her narrowed eyes, the sharp edge in her voice as she accused him of keeping secrets. And she hadn't been wrong. He had been careless, reckless, letting Jasmine creep further into his life, into his thoughts, until she was no longer just a mistake, but a force that couldn't be ignored. Jasmine watched him closely, her breathing quick and shallow. She had played this moment out in her mind over and over again, imagining every possible reaction: anger, regret, maybe even a confession of love that would change everything. But Kirk's silence was worse than any of those. It was like a blade twisting in her chest, fueling the fire inside her. She stepped even closer, her shadow stretching over him as he sat on the couch. "Look at me," she demanded, her voice dropping to a whisper, but carrying the weight of an ultimatum. "You don't get to sit there and act like this isn't happening. I've given you everything. My time, my heart, my pride. And for what? To watch you play house with Rasheeda while I wait in the background? No more. You're going to leave her, and you're going to marry me. That's the deal." Kirk exhaled sharply, finally meeting her gaze. His eyes hardened, his posture stiffened. "You really think it's that easy? That I can just walk away from everything I've built with Rasheeda? Because you're tired of waiting?" He shook his head, frustration creeping into his voice. "Jazz, you knew what this was from the beginning." She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "Don't you dare put this on me, Kirk. I didn't plan on falling for you. I didn't know you'd keep coming back, making promises you never intended to keep. But you did. And now, I'm calling in those promises. You owe me this." The C word "O" hung between them, sharp and unyielding. Kirk stood up, towering over her, trying to regain some sense of control. But she didn't waver. He turned away, pacing toward the window, staring out at the Atlanta skyline. He could feel her eyes burning into his back, her presence as heavy as the tension in the room. She wasn't bluffing. He knew her well enough to see that this wasn't just an emotional outburst. This was her drawing a line in the sand. There would be no going back after this. "Rasheeda isn't just some fling I can toss aside," Kirk said, his voice quieter now. "She's my wife, my partner. We've built a life together." Jasmine's expression twisted with hurt and anger. "Then what am I?" she shot back, her voice rising. "A mistake? A distraction? Because that's not what you said when you were in my bed, telling me how much you needed me." He turned back to face her, his expression conflicted. She was right. He had fed her hope, let her believe in a future that maybe never existed. But the truth was, his heart was torn in two. Love for Rasheeda, passion for Jasmine, and his own selfishness that had kept him straddling both worlds for too long. Now, those worlds were colliding, and Jasmine was demanding he make a choice. Jazz, if I do this, if I leave Rasheeda, it's not Joe,